Welcome to True Talk, brought to you by Trueland Equipment. Join us as we explore cutting-edge machinery, groundbreaking technology, and inspirational stories from the field.
From the dedicated efforts of our team members to the triumphs and challenges of our farmers, True Talk brings you along every step of the way.
Whether you're a seasoned agriculturalist or simply curious about the industry, tune in to discover the fascinating intersection of technology, agriculture, and green machines.
True Talk, cultivating true conversations.
Welcome back to the True Talk podcast.
Hey, that's my line.
Thank you. That is your line. What are we talking about today?
We're doing our crop talk
First in-season agronomy talk, right? Kind of
for 2025.
Agronomy update, in-season update.
I would like to say post-plant, but
Well, it's really close to being post-plant. Really, really close. So,
except for this rain that we just got.
Yeah. We're, I think in all our updates last year, we talked about how broad the planting date range and the crop growth stage range was across our territory. And I think it's even worse this year.
Well, it's very segmented.
Yeah. Well, we're sitting here at probably the second week of June, somewhere in there. We just really and truly wrapped up some planting in certain parts of our territory, and yet we've got, we're pushing lay-by in other parts of our territory, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that the corn is going to be impassable here pretty quick. So, yeah.
I was in a field yesterday working on a customer's side dress bar, and they had come in, done some end rows and some headlands, and then come back in and filled in the rest of the long rows.
Yeah.
They got rained out, I think must have been that, or it wasn't fit. And the difference, I mean, those end rows, they were struggling. That corn's going to be severely damaged. So
Was it the weather? Was it planted just on the wrong side of the cold snap?
No, it wasn't.
Or?
It wasn't the wrong side. It's just that difference was so vast.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
I think that the later planted stuff just missed the critical, that little heat window that we had.
Yep.
And I think it laid dormant in the ground for a little too long. So the difference between the two, while the planting dates might not have been that significant, the results from the GDDs are just
right. It's crazy. I mean, and I suffer from a little regional bias just because of where I'm located. Again, we have a vast territory, and I'm wedged over in the
and then right
western
next
part.
to you we have me. So
right.
Well, we need some representation from Ohio.
I mean, you're pushing the midpoint where you're at, but this business, you'd think it would be repetitive year in and year out. It's never the same. This is again a year where it's just so fascinating. We had a beautiful planting window over here in mid to late April. Gosh, the ground conditions were amazing. I mean, absolutely, the tilth was amazing. No till, strip till, conventional till. And then we had some temperature. We had a 90-degree day. We hit 90 in
I mean, you guys
May.
almost teetered on the side of too dry.
Yeah. We all were, probably.
Which is kind of crazy and unheard of. I mean, typically, we're not worried about being too dry this early on.
Right. Well, we came in pretty dry, but we had this beautiful condition window, and then, you got to think with your head and think with your heart, right? And some guys just went at it. Some guys said, hey, we're going to wait for that cold spell. But we hit 90 degree at some point, I think mid-May, and then we had some planting done over here, and then we just had this 10-day cold, rainy spell that just completely slammed the brakes on everything. And anything that was planted on the kind of the front side of that was going to start struggling getting up. The clays were a little tough. So we're kind of back to reality.
Yeah, we got to break out the rotary hoe.
Right. And so it amazes me how
us and everybody else, but yeah.
How it can be so good condition-wise, and then all of a sudden we've got replant going on. It's amazing how that can flip. So there's a lot going on, as usual. And again, we've got territories. When we did our internal agronomy update here early June, again, we had growth stages of just going in the ground, and then I've got stuff over here that's pushing V7 in corn. That's a massive difference.
Yeah, it's a big swing.
So it's going to be like that all year. I hope we can get this late planting wrapped up and move on. But
do you think that people are going to finish out the season, or do you think they're just going to take prevent?
That's a good question.
I mean, we just got 3 inches of rain.
Yeah, I think we're probably pretty close as a territory to being done, but I'm guessing there'll be some prevent, and at a minimum, they'll switch some corn acres over to beans or back their corn maturity way off, right?
Then it begs the question, bean markets
Yeah.
are questionable this year.
Yeah.
So
Corn for the first time in a while, right? Corn is the more attractive marketing thing to grow. So I don't know.
obviously with planting dates, we have a little bit more flexibility with beans, but for, profitability in a already tight year
Yeah.
economically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean,
I don't know. It's just been a question that I'm kind of internally pondering. And so
you hate to push or promote preventive planting because it goes against everything that we want to accomplish, right?
yeah, and you're even talking economic feasibility, the management of that, or the
Right.
repercussions of keeping fallow ground for an entire
Right.
year, and the weed repercussions, and
Yeah.
alone. I mean, or making multiple passes across a field where it's unnecessary.
right, because you're not getting any payoff on those passes. So
So,
I don't know.
I don't know what the
I don't
right
want to
answer is,
speculate
but-
that, but there probably will be some preventive planting. I think
I don't ever want to speculate prevent plant, but it's always something.
I think the last few days we were about 80% done as a company. I think the last 3 days we surely made some headway on that. But yeah, you're probably right there with we just got a 2-inch plus rain and those guys and that's a lot of that's in the northern Ohio part of our territory that just never got fit to plant. So we'll see. But we got to press on with the stuff that is planted and we've had in our area we've had side dressing going on like crazy. Had some guys wrap it up, right? We got herbicides going on. We got some early foliar feeds going on. There's a lot of activity, and like I said, this 2-inch rain just probably welcome here. Probably not welcome in areas where they're not done. But
I mean, everybody yesterday was like, I mean, a good half an inch. I don't know if we want an inch. A good half an inch, we'll take it. That'd be good. We're trying to wrap up side dressing. So yeah, a good half an inch would be okay, but an inch was getting to be too much for guys. Yeah, and then triple that.
yeah, well, I had a guy again. You said you thought you had pushing 3 inches in your area in the Wabash, Indiana area,
if not more. Yeah.
I had a guy text me a picture of right at 2 inches on his gauge this morning in the Delphi area, and a guy in the Kokomo, Indiana area was about 2.5. And I asked him, how I asked them both, did you guys think you needed it? And they both said, yeah. One guy said maybe a little bit too much. The other guy said, yeah. And he's in an area that can be droughty. He's basically up on top of a riverbank with almost all his
But see,
ground.
man, we're 300 yards from the river,
Right.
straight sand.
Yep. You're on a cliff. You're essentially farming on a cliff in some of those areas, right?
Yeah. And I mean, to have puddles that remain for multiple hours is unheard of. And
Right.
we are there.
Right.
So
Right. Been a lot going on. So a couple key items. We've kind of talked about this a lot. You and I have, but we
got a lot of key items.
have it's not uncommon to see a little chemical stress on a yearly basis this year because of that 10-day cold, wet, and cloudy. Cloudy is probably the
Completely
key word.
exacerbated.
Yeah, the chemical stress in a lot of fields that had
Yeah.
pre-plant or early post herbicides, and we had a lot of corn showing burnt leaf tips and yellow leaves, or some bleachers as you've seen in some of your areas, and obviously the grass control, the cetaclors and metolachlors can cause a little buggy whipping here and there. So we've had
I have seen, I've seen lots of buggy whipping.
Yeah, more than normal, and some
Correct.
leafing out underground. So
A little bit's always normal.
So we always tell people, that plant, even though that plant's tolerant to that herbicide, and it still has to, metabolize it, digest it, and when you turn the sunshine off and make it cold, it just can't do that. So we had a lot of I'm going to call it chemical stress. You can say injury. I hate to say damage, but we know that when that sun comes back out and the temperatures come up, that plant will work it through and be fine.
But there is the question of the dormancy or the inability to metabolize that herbicide sitting in the plant for that long. There does have to be some yield implications to that. I think personally, I don't know, you might have a different take on that.
I honestly,
but the question is, what is it? Is it going to be 2 bushels? Is it going to be,
So let me ask you this question, because we don't ever want a corn plant to have a bad day, but it was going to have a bad day with 10 days of cool, cloudy.
We all have bad days.
Right,
It's fine.
Right. So the cool, cloudy conditions were going to be bad days anyway. So you add that chemical stress, that adds another week, maybe,
Yes.
right?
That's the question is, are we just multiplying factors here that didn't need to be there to begin with?
So I got a question for you then, along those same lines. We had, during that cold spell, we had corn that was just out of the ground, and we had corn that was probably at V4 and V5. When would you rather have that halt in growth? V1, VE, V1, or V5?
Well, see, I don't like the longevity period where we're running off of seed fuel.
I agree. I agree.
I mean, I don't like either. I don't like either scenario.
Yeah, I agree, because that's a critical time, right? When that plant's just working off of seed reserves and trying to kick over to its own roots and its own factory. And I know you don't want to. You can cause some damage if you kind of muck up that process. But let me ask you this:
there's more tolerance.
There's more time to recover.
Yes.
What about?
And I feel like they're a little bit more resilient at that stage.
Right. Yeah, and also you're not as close to coming into that ear formation time, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'd rather have that stress early.
Some of that stuff hasn't been determined, where you get a little bit later, and some of those decisions are starting to be made predetermined for the rest of the summer.
Right. So my thought is that V1 plant can recover and get into V5, V6, V7 when it's starting to think about rows around and it's moved on from that stress. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, it was not a good throw in the chemical stress caused. It's like I said, it's always going to be there a little bit, but exacerbated by that 10-day cold, cloudy, rainy.
Yeah. And see, everybody had that. I mean, that's inevitable. And that's just like our later, it'll be interesting to see I think it'll be less about when did that cold spell hit, at what stage it was at, versus planting date and the correlation to that versus pollination and what the weather looks like at pollination.
Right. And again, and again, obviously the people that didn't have anything in the ground at that point, it didn't matter to them. So that was mid to late May, right? When we had that mid-May, had that kind of iffy weather. So yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to happen for this crop to be made, and we're, like I said, we get into that V6 to V8. We hope that plant is fed. If guys are going to do some foliar or early foliars, you want to do that V4, V5, and get that plant in good shape heading into V6. And we want good weather then, and we want good weather at pollination. So we're going to have a lot of different pollination windows this year across our territory. So it's going to be fascinating to see who catches the dry, hot. Right? There's going to be it's in there somewhere. The dry, hot.
Always is.
Yeah. So a lot of things to happen.
Farmer's Almanac.
What's it say?
I don't know. I haven't checked it.
Yeah, we need an update on that. I would love to see what it says on pollination timing this year and the weather. When we're talking, anywhere from mid-July up at this point, probably to mid-August.
Mid-August,
on our pollination windows across the territory. So a lot going on. Again, those that are side dressing, some areas we're wrapped up. Some areas we're getting close to starting. I'm going to just throw this out there because of the weather. I feel like sulfur is going to be maybe a little more important this year. We typically, we know we're going to be short on sulfur in a lot of areas anyway, right? We don't get as much from our atmosphere and from our rain, but when you have some cooler conditions that come in, it takes a little bit more time for that natural sulfur to release from the soil organic matter. So seeing a little bit of sulfur deficiencies here and there. And, the clays are back to being normal clays, right? They're not warming up as fast. So our clays are showing a little bit, the plants and some of the clays are a little bit behind. So we picked up some sun and heat here in the last week or so. So things are turning around and looking a little better here. And anyway, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of things to be made. So this time of year, we're going to start changing to weed control. Even though we're talking about the residual pre-plant herbicide stress, we still got to get out there at some point and attack weeds yet again, right? We're starting to get the water hemp to germinate.
Oh my gosh, the water hemp and the pigweed. Ugh.
Yeah. And you said you're starting to see some velvet leaf and some manured fields.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So we got some post spray going on. We got some early foliar feeding going on, and then we're going to start shifting to
which velvet leaf I'm not really ever overly cautious about. Obviously, the pigweed and the water hemp, I'm a little bit more skeptical and want to take care of that a little bit earlier, stay on top of that. Right. However, do you want to throw in your little tidbit about velvet leaf and
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, I mean, velvet leaf's easy to kill. The kind of the big talking point for us, particularly with our See and Spray customers, is that the negative of velvet leaf and See and Spray is that velvet leaf kind of can blend in with some
soybean leaf,
right?
Yeah.
And in cotton, they say it's the same thing. So the See and
cotton, I feel like that would be a lot more similar.
Right. So
that and some like giant rag.
Yeah. So the See and Spray system, particularly when you have velvet leaf in the row, is a little bit of a weakness there in terms of that system determining what's the soybean leaf and what's the velvet leaf. So
It's kind of crazy. Never would have thought about that.
right.
But
So in See and Spray, if you got velvet leaf problem, you gotta crank that sensitivity up to the max, and going to be a little bit less savings on that. But like to think that over time there'll be some software, hopefully software updates and some machine learning type things that maybe down the road that might get better
for sure.
over
for
time.
Sure.
So yeah, weed control. I've kind of said when we're watching things, we're watching. I don't, you're always going to see a little cutworm here and there, just because they're always around. But I guess I feel like anybody that planted in fields that were pretty green before planting, especially those late planted stuff, we want to watch for cutworms for sure. It's rare for us to have a cutworm epidemic, but boy, when we have one, man, they can do a lot of damage. And
Yeah.
so the late planted stuff, we're gonna have to watch for that, right? Watch for grub. Grub had a little bit of grub feeding in places, and so we got to watch for them. And then I've got this thrown in here, so I love to talk about it because it happens in the no-till guys actually fairly frequently, and I think it goes unnoticed. But slugs is another one that you got to look for, and that's that one that very few people, unless you've seen slug damage, can look at a plant and say, "Oh yeah, that's slugs."
I didn't really care about slugs. We're not no-till, so I don't know. I have just never really thought about slugs all that much until they took out my hostas last year. And then, man, it's on like Donkey Kong. Yeah. I have a raging vengeance against the slugs. So,
are they in a part of the house that tends to be higher moisture?
Slug haters unite. No,
no sun hits it or something, or what?
I would say it's a little bit more shaded.
I've seen that,
but it was my hosta.
So they have that web feeding, right? Did you notice that? And they can. So I've seen that in landscaping too. I've seen them. They come out at night, right? They hang around on the porch and they get on your hostas or whatever. But they do the same thing, and they like wet, high moisture conditions, right? They're a high moisture. I don't call them an insect or a worm or whatever they are. I'm not sure exactly what they're. They're a mollusk, aren't they?
They're a pest.
But they like the high moisture. They like hiding under residue. So they're an ideal no-till pest, especially in springs that are higher moisture and
landscaping.
Yeah, and you look at your leaves and you see this web feeding. You're thinking, what is that? Well, you don't know they're there until you see them come out, and the sun goes down and they just come out. That's always a fun one to talk about. To me, it's you hate to.
It's not fun. We hate the slugs.
You hate to have fun diagnosing, things that are a problem for people, but to me is a fun one to diagnose because a lot of people miss it. So
a lot of people miss a lot. I think we talk about this every year, but
yeah,
obviously year over year over year cannot stress the importance of doing more than road farming.
Right.
You can't see slug damage from your truck cab.
Well, and again, that's another one like that, like almost like the herbicide damage. As long as you got a healthy growing plant, a lot of times it can outgrow that.
Yeah.
But if not, there's not just some insecticide that the slugs are kind of hard to deal with. I mean, a lot of guys will try to spray 28. It's the salt. Since they're a high moisture insect, or again, whatever they are,
I'm gonna look it up.
The salt is a way to dehydrate their body, right? There's just not a real easy way to control. Some guys try to just spray 28 over the top and try to get them that way.
Put some Epsom salt.
Yeah, something. Sounds weird.
Sulfur and Epsom salt.
Who knew that slugs would be the longest topic we would talk about today?
We always talk about the weird stuff.
Yeah. So there we go. So what do you think otherwise? How about hay and wheat?
It is a mollusk.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
that's a phylum.
So it makes it hard for insecticides because it's not an insect, right? They don't work. When you're you got to know the target, right? What it is. So
yeah.
Anyway, moving on. We got hay production going on, right? We've been watching leaf hoppers and hay, alfalfa especially.
You have been.
Yeah, they've been high in numbers, and
yeah.
It's also the time of year to I kind of said this in our agronomy update internally that wheat fungicide window seemed to come really fast and go really fast. And it caught some guys off guard. I had one guy that said, "Hey, when do I spray my wheat?" And I always send this picture out and said, when you see these little anthers, when you start to see 1 or 2 anthers sticking off from the side of that wheat head, it's time to spray. Well, he said, "I've got a bunch of them. They're all dying." I said, "Well, I think your window closed really, really fast." And it just happens so quick.
It's like spraying fungicide at black layer.
Yeah. Yeah, really. No, it is, unfortunately.
Good luck, Chuck.
It's very unfortunate because, I think fungicide is a critical part of high yield wheat.
Is it fungicide or fungicide?
Fungicide, sorry. Fungicide.
No, which one do you say? Everybody says it differently.
I say hard G, fungicide.
Fungicide.
Is that a hard G? Yeah,
Fungicide.
that's what I say.
I don't know. I didn't study whatever that is that you
Well,
would know the phonetics.
Fungi. Yeah, but I say fungicide for sure. But I think that window is probably closed pretty much across our territory. So on the wheat, we're just kind of waiting and hoping that we get good enough weather and get. It's going to be probably a 4th of July-ish wheat harvest, right? I think it's going to be pretty close to that.
Honestly, I think it could go a little bit early. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like last year. Last year, it snuck up on us.
Yeah, super early.
Super early and snuck up on us. This year, I think that if it is on the earlier side, we're going to be prepared for it. We're going to see it coming from a mile
last
away.
week of June, maybe.
Yeah.
Around the first, maybe, or the 1st of July. I agree with it. We had a pretty long window.
I think so. Farmer's Almanac does say that 4th of July is supposed to be rainy.
Okay.
The weekend before is supposed to be super hot and dry. So that's what I'm expecting to be the ideal time to harvest that.
I think we had a pretty long window of the wheat getting put in the ground last year as well. I think we had some that went in pretty late. So,
and the wheat crop is very all over the board. I've seen some stuff that looks phenomenal, like picture perfect. Yeah. Couldn't ask for better wheat.
Yep.
And then I've seen some that looks like it could be residual cover crop potentially.
Yeah, I mean, thin, right?
Just very thin, very.
Probably got planted late. Probably didn't till her very good last fall.
Then you're starting to see some of the improper timing of fungicide applications and fungicide.
But you know what? You know what's funny though? I mean, we're sitting here talking. Do you realize your wheat harvest that you think is going to happen is going to be within 3 weeks? Like it's coming quick, then, isn't it?
Oh yeah, snap. Get your combines ready.
Yeah, really. Get your combines ready for wheat harvest.
Hey, we'll do that. We'll do another episode about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about wheat harvest probably after
wheat harvest.
But that next time we meet.
I mean, honestly, we do one of these once a month. Yeah. The next time that we have one of these, wheat should be coming off.
Yeah, or should be about off. So that'll be fun to talk about too. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on. The only other thing, and I did jot some notes down, is that, and I just hate to say this, but I was just reading an article in some areas, if we're hitting V7, it's almost time to start watching for a little bit of early tar spot in places. I mean, we can't.
It is June.
I know. But
it's June.
It has been here earlier and earlier the last 3 growing seasons, and you have to watch. I mean, you just have to. It's got to be in the back of your head when you're scouting your fields to start looking for those little. I sure hope we don't see it at all, let alone, before late July or August.
But honestly, if you're scouting, I fall into this camp as well. Scouting in June, I see a black speck. My mind is never going to go to tar spot.
Right.
It's early. Yep. It's so early.
And there's times where you can find just one speck and still somehow get away and not have a field that's completely inundated. But you got to know, and we got.
But V7, think about the timing of that. Think about what that crop is doing at that time.
Yeah, well, we're pushing towards, a lot of guys are doing 2 fungicide passes, whether they're putting one in the in-furrow or, maybe an early V6 to V8 fungicide pass, knowing they're going to come late. So I think a lot of guys are.
What would you say for? Obviously, we're speculating here. We'll test your hypothesis later in the growing season. But what are you speculating in terms of fungicide applications on soybeans this year?
Yeah, I just couldn't. I couldn't not have fungicides in my program.
Yeah.
On beans. I just couldn't. Yeah. I mean, it's you can get away with, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on fungicide because I think it always wants me to go right to the pH of your spray solution and half-lives and things like that. I think a lot of us have missed in the past. But you can get away with some generics on soybeans, right? And it's a cheaper fungicide pass. And a lot of us are throwing that cheap insecticide in for that synergy. So I wouldn't not have that in there because a lot of times you're already going out. You're going to go out with a late, hopefully, again, boron or some kind of foliar feed.
You and your boron.
Or potash foliar feed. Maybe a late Liberty application. So you're probably already going across the field anyway, and we can get a fungicide pass into beans pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And we're going to have some brown spot, right, with some of the rain we're having right now. We're going to have probably, you talk about compaction, you're going to have sudden death in the end rows, right? And in some of the clays.
Well, it's supposed to be hot and dry, so sudden death is kind of going to be inevitable if that's the weather that we're going to see for the rest of the season.
Well, and right now is when your sudden death inoculation kind of happens, right? When we get those cooler, wet conditions, that's when that pathogen gets in the plant. So And then it starts to show right later in the season, like you say, when it's dry and those compaction areas start showing stress. And we're always going to have a little sudden death. But
Yeah.
I just think that it's a no-brainer on soybeans. And I know economically we got to scrutinize some of that
Soybeans are hard
stuff.
this year.
But I would not take that out because I've seen the devastation of not spraying a fungicide pass.
Yeah.
At times it can really bite you, and I know it may be rare, but boy, it hurts when it happens. So, any other thoughts?
I don't think so.
Okay, we need sunshine, right?
Yeah.
Sunshine. Heat. I hate to use
The
the word
corn
heat.
needs sunshine. I need sunshine.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yep, a lot going on as usual. So get your combines ready for wheat. Keep your sprayers hot and ready to go, right, for weed control, and hopefully we have minimal pests and minimal diseases, and hopefully everybody's using AutoPath, right, out there for any of their in-crop stuff. And,
Yeah.
we press on. So
AutoPath boundaries for wheat harvest also.
Oh yeah, that's a really good idea. AutoPath boundaries, yeah.
Crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Crazy ideas.
Yeah, I never even thought about mentioning that. So good call. AutoPath boundaries for your wheat harvest. Let us know if you got any questions on that. And we will talk to you on probably another 4 to 6 weeks, right? With another agronomy update.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds
Until
good.
next time.
Talk to you next time.